Our YouTube in the Deep South, college football is king, and on the plains of Auburn, the battle cry is War Eagle. My name is Kennard Vernon Stewart, and we're talking Auburn football. Week 1 for college football, Auburn takes on Alabama A&M, kind of a familiar foe, as Auburn has met them a couple of times, usually winning by a large margin. If you're a betting guy, be careful with this one. I don't know if you want to vote the over and under. A lot of betting folks are saying that you might want to pick A&M with the under, but we shall see. Either way, there's some stories that have come about that I didn't really think about, in the fact that Auburn's offense has struggled mightily in the last few years, dating back to especially Peyton Thorne's era last year, just not getting a lot done, less than 30 points per game. Also, since Bo Nix has left, I mean, the offense has been pretty abysmal for the Auburn Tigers. Now, we look back to the 2010 football team that had the infamous Cam Baby Daddy Newton. I'm just being funny. I'm not. I think Cam Newton's a great guy. I think he does a great job with his podcast, and I think he is doing everything that I thought he would do. I always thought Cam Newton would be a great football player, which he was at a certain time. But I also thought, with his look and the way he presented himself, what he's doing right now with his podcast and his analytics of college football, NFL football, I think is absolutely phenomenal. Big shout out to Cam Newton. You got a national champion football player that did this with. He had some help. Now, we're not going to go ahead and be irresponsible on Vernon Speak Sports Auburn and say that Cam Newton did all of this by himself. You take away Nick Fairley, you take away Michael Dyer, and you take away a lot of key pieces to this puzzle that helped make some things happen at Auburn in 2010, and you don't have the greatness of that college football season. Auburn going 14-0 and astoundingly averaging about 40 points per game. Now, Derrick Nix, offensive coordinator now for Auburn, understands that, this is something that has not happened at Auburn in quite some time. But he also understands that if Auburn is going to be successful, this is something he better try to do and try to make happen. And that starts with the Alabama A&M football game, a game that I'm going to predict it tomorrow. I think Auburn will win pretty solidly. I'm going to predict my score tomorrow as well. Obviously, when you do a prediction show, you do a score concept. But I think Auburn is in a place to where, if you're going to win, and that's with any college football team. If you look at all of the college football teams that have been successful, that have either won their conference or made the college football playoff, they score a lot of points, and they're able to push the football down the field. I think Auburn has the pieces to do this. Hugh Freeze said in his presser just yesterday that, hey, these young guys, it's high time that they step up and make some things happen. I think he has the opportunity to do that with some of the receivers that he has, and I think he has a little buffer with guys like Keandre Lambert-Smith and Sam Jackson and, guys like that can, really come in and provide that experience and that confidence to take a little bit of pressure off of these talented young wide receivers and put Auburn in a position of scoring points. Because if you look at the defensive depth chart, they just put it out there like, you know what? We don't know who's starting. Everybody's starting. They have, if you see a one guy at the starting position, it says or. So that means they have a rotation of guys that they plan on using on this defense, to where I think it makes sense. And I think if this thing is executed properly, it could put Auburn in a position to be very successful this coming year because, defense was not necessarily a strong point for Auburn in 2023. Quarterback play is going to be very important. I think, Peyton Thorne has to play with a lot of confidence. I think Peyton Thorne has to play with a lot of cerebral intelligence for the position. Some of those plays like the pick six against Vanderbilt can't happen. Pick six against Maryland, those things cannot happen. I think he has to be very solid in his decision making to add to some of the confidence that the wide receivers, the running backs, the offense can trust. Also, Auburn has Hank Brown as backup quarterback. Had a decent showing in Maryland. I don't know how much stock we can place on that level of performance, but even still, it was enough for Hugh Freeze, who knows that this is a very pivotal point of Auburn football, that, hey, Hank Brown has to be a guy that, if things go awry, this is a guy that I trust. This is a guy that I think can take that second step. He did say that Hank Brown has some ways to go, and rightfully so. As the number 2 guy, obviously you didn't do enough to be the number 1 guy, but you definitely have to have that piece in place for Auburn to be successful. Auburn also talked about a lot of injuries, key injuries. Accordingly, Keontae Scott, I don't know to the extent that Keontae wouldn't play. I don't know if this is smoke and mirrors just to kind of hold some guys out and give them some limited roles until the quote-unquote big one against California next week comes up. I mean, we don't know. I think Auburn in the running game has to be very versatile. They have some versatilely talented running backs, especially when you look at the top 3 in Jarquez Hunter, Damari Alston, and Jeremiah Cobb. That gives you the opportunity to do a lot of things. I think they want to throw the ball to these guys out of the backfield to stretch the defense, to put some anxiety on the defense, and I think you can do that, considering you have arguably, at least talent-wise on paper, some of the more talented wide receivers in the country, and to team that up with guys like Jarquez Hunter and Damari Alston and Jeremiah Cobb, I think that could make some sleepless nights for some defensive coordinators if this thing is executed properly. Now, before we get into the prediction show, I just want to know, what are some of the superlatives that you want to see from the Auburn football team? Mine is this. I want to see absolute confidence from Peyton Thorne. I want to see sustained drives from the offense. I want to see scores that are not as a result of the mistakes of the opponent, Alabama A&M. I want to see drives that are scores that are as the result of high levels of execution. I want to see passes that are converted in the intermediate portion of the football field, which will be key in controlling the down and distance in more formidable opponents down the stretch. And I want to see Keandre Lambert-Smith be that guy that's going to help Auburn. And I think that's, from what I see on film, that's what he's going to be able to create. He creates a lot of separation in that intermediate portion of the football field that can help Auburn lessen the down and distance. Instead of, third and, say, 6 to 8, 9, or 15, 16, 17, I think Keandre Lambert-Smith gives Auburn an opportunity to really shorten the down and distance. And that's going to be key in games against Oklahoma, games against Georgia, games against Missouri, to where you got to have that down and distance battle, especially early on, in order to win the football game. But the question on the floor is, can Auburn, I don't even, the 40 points per game, I don't think that's from the onset, a reasonable prediction. But I think they got to be in the high 35s. They have to score some points to beat some of the football teams that they're going to face. All right, guys, go ahead and like this video, comment, and subscribe to Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn. This is week 1 of the college football season. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger.